Hello, our group topic is case study number 5, Congenital Malformations and Hazardous Waste. Congenital malformation is the structural or functional abnormality that occurs during pregnancy and can be identified during or after birth. The term hazardous waste is variously applied in different countries, loosely defining non-household waste that includes hazardous waste chemicals. Hazardous wastes are wastes that, when present in certain quantities or concentrations in the environment, or when improperly stored or transported, pose a threat to human health. Poor, outdated, and illegal practices of urban and hazardous waste disposal affect local communities virtually in all countries. This includes illegal transboundary trade, mostly from the industrialized countries. The burden of diseases of waste-related exposure in the low-income countries is increasing and not sufficiently recognized. One of the concerns for this case study is that many toxic chemicals present in toxic waste landfills and hazardous waste sites are cytotoxic. This means that they affect cells, tissues, and organs at specific stages of development and inhibit with normal growth, especially in the embryo and fetus growth, as well as developmental organs. For this presentation, a congenital malformation occurs when the mother is exposed to a certain concentration of a hazardous substance while being pregnant, which causes a malformation within the fetus. Signs and symptoms can be seen prenatally at birth or later on in life. The etiology of congenital malformation is multifactorial, with an important role of genetic factors and a recognized interaction between genetic and environmental factors and epigenetic mechanisms. This is Anne. She is a single African-American mother in her late 30s, living in a low-income house in Ontario, Canada. She is 5 months pregnant with her child. Anne lives near an industrial factory that releases toxic fumes into the air on a daily basis. Her house does not have air filters, so the fumes from the factory enter into her home. Also, she does not have an air conditioning unit in her house, so she has to constantly open her room windows. Anne is a frequent walker since she cannot afford a car, so she has to walk every day to and from work. She went on a regular checkup for the baby, which included an ultrasound, glucose concentration test, and a blood test. According to her results, the doctor discovered that she had high concentrations of a toxic substance, mercury, in her blood. She could not do anything about her current living situation, so she kept the baby full term. After giving birth, she realized that the baby was unable to open their eyes, and after some more tests, figured out that the baby also had damage to the lungs, kidneys, and nervous system. This is not the only malformation that occurs during pregnancy. As a result of an exposure to these hazardous substances, other types of malformations could be present. An oral cleft palate is when the palate is not completely formed at birth. This defect has been linked to pesticide exposure. Musculoskeletal defects happen, such as fibrosis dysplasia. This means that a part of the body where the bone is not developed properly and is replaced with fibrous tissue. This defect is linked to heavy metal exposure. Nervous system defects, such as spina bifida, which is a birth defect where there is an incomplete closing of the backbone and membrane around the spinal cord, is linked to the exposure of solvents. Skin or integument defects, such as eczema, which is a chronic inflammatory skin condition characterized by dry skin with patches that are red and intensely itchy. This can be due to the exposure to heavy metals and the chemicals found in solvents. Digestive system defects such as celiac disease, which is characterized as a problem some people have with foods that contain gluten, can be caused by the exposure to solvents. Chromosomal anomalies such as autism, which is a spectrum disorder that refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication, can be caused by the exposure to plastic. There are other defects that can be caused by the exposure of hazardous waste, such as Down syndrome or other defects that do not fit into a certain category. The etiology of congenital malformations is multifactorial, with an important role of genetic factors and a recognized interaction between genetic and environmental factors and epigenetic mechanisms. This topic deserves further investigation in order to better clarify the etiological pattern. Public health programs implementation can be introduced to prevent these malformations from having such a prevalence in pregnancies.